In central Iraq, a number of arrests have provoked mass protests in two major cities. Will these latest protests lead to renewed sectarian violence? And will Iraqi Prime Minister al-Maliki be able to contain the anger in his war-torn country? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. In Doha, I'm Adrian Finnegan. Iraq's government is dealing with the wrath of thousands of protesters this week. Mass rallies are taking place against what's seen as an unfair crackdown on Sunni Muslims. The unrest is part of broader sectarian tension that threatens the stability of the war-torn country a year after the last US troops left. Al Jazeera's Omar al-Saleh reports.
A show of support in Ramadi and Fallujah for Iraqi Finance Minister Rafa al-Issawi. During its biggest rally in days in Anbar province, local leaders have called for civil disobedience. And thousands have blocked the highway linking Iraq to Jordan and Syria. They are demanding the release of 9 bodyguards of the finance minister who were arrested on Thursday. But Rafa al-Issawi addressed the angry crowd, saying the issue now is bigger than the arrests of his bodyguards.
This crowd is not political or sectarian, but it represents all Iraqis who came to denounce the injustice and marginalization. When we say the injustice has happened against Sunni Arabs, that doesn't mean that we want to take the country to a civil war.
The protesters urge the Shia-led government to stop its sectarian approach and marginalization of Sunnis and their leaders. But the government continues to deny the accusation. Prime Minister al-Maliki says the issue of the bodyguards is judicial and the role of the state is to pursue wanted terrorists and not to support them. Many fear the crisis may escalate.
The situation in Iraq may take a dangerous direction as elections approach. What politicians are doing is polarizing their supporters ethnically and based on sectarian affiliations. What's happening in Anbar can escalate and may lead to more pressure on the Prime Minister.
But other Sunni leaders accuse the Prime Minister of trying to consolidate his grip on power and target his political rivals. al-Hashemi, Iraq's fugitive vice president, has been sentenced to death in absentia for terrorism charges. He says the Prime Minister is adopting sectarian policies. Adding to Iraq's political turmoil is the looming armed confrontation between the Iraqi army and forces from the semi-autonomous Kurdish north. It's almost a year since US forces withdrew from Iraq. President Barack Obama then said the US was leaving a stable and a secure democracy. But the country's political and natural floods are threatening not only the capital, but the rest of the new Iraq. Omar al-Saleh for Inside Story.
So, will these recent protests serve to foment further sectarian violence in Iraq? Well, to hopefully answer this question, we're joined by our guests today in Baghdad. Saad al-Muttalibi, a member of the State of Law Coalition. Al-Muttalibi is also a political advisor to the Iraqi Ministry of Dialogue and Reconciliation. From London, we're joined by Anas al-Tikriti, CEO of Cordoba Foundation and a former member of the Muslim Association of Britain. And from Erbil, we're joined by Hiwa Osman, an Iraqi Kurdish journalist. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. Saad al-Muttalibi, we'll begin with you. The Prime Minister says that these arrests were a judicial matter, that they're nothing to do with him. Are we to take that at face value, that he really knew nothing about it?
That's absolutely correct. He has nothing to do with it. We have been instructed as political parties allied to the government that this is not a governmental issue. We have nothing to do with it, and we will not discuss the detail of this matter as it is left for the justice system. We could talk around the circumstances surrounding the event, but we cannot discuss the event itself as the investigation is still going on.
All right, let me ask your opinion then of one of the claims we heard in the report just now. Are Iraq's politicians actively polarizing their supporters along ethnic and sectarian lines?
Unfortunately, with the failure of certain political parties in gaining seats in the last elections, and those that gained seats in the last elections have also failed in providing services or assisting the government in providing services to the people, there was a call for a national program for the people of Iraq through major supporters of Iraqia and some of Iraqia leaders. With that failure, unfortunately, certain elements of Iraqia are resorting back to sectarian, trying to mobilize sectarian feelings for the upcoming local elections. And it's very apparent that those people who have been very negative in all events, pushing for services to the people, or assisting the parliament in the legislating new laws, those are the same people that unfortunately are polarizing the population on sectarian divide. And this is something we think is very unwise, very unjust, and definitely we will not be drawn to it.
Okay. Let's see what Anas al-Tikriti makes of what he's heard so far. Anas, would these raids, do you think, have happened had President Talabani not been taken ill?
I think they would. It might have given al-Maliki an opportune moment of time to actually carry out something which he had long threatened to do, and that is to target Rafi al-Issawi, along with Tariq al-Hashemi, whom in the report you mentioned, was almost to the day last year targeted in almost an identical fashion, and then a few other Sunni political leaders whom he and his advisors have alluded to the fact that they will be targeted. So it might have offered that particular moment to do it right now, but actually al-Maliki has his particular vision, has his particular project. It's quite interesting hearing Mr. al-Muttalibi, and he's part of the Commission for Dialogue and Reconciliation. I'd be quite interested in another show to understand exactly what they've been up to over the past few years. It's interesting hearing about how this is a judicial process. The problem is that Iraq has become politicized on every single level, including the judiciary, and as well as the security apparatus, the police, the army. Every single level of Iraq now has been politicized, and therefore every single decision made, it's quite comical of Mr. al-Muttalibi to actually claim that this has nothing to do with the government and that the government will speak none of it. This is a political project, it's a political program. Al-Maliki knows exactly what he's doing, and to speak of others as though they're pursuing a sectarian project is also quite quite repugnant, to be perfectly honest, because those who have the realms of power are the ones who are pursuing this particular project.
Okay, Hiwa Osman, we'll come to you in just a moment in Abu, but first I want to get a comment from Mr. al-Muttalibi. The Prime Minister knew very well what he was doing.
Absolutely wrong. I mean, unfortunately, Mr. Anas is going the wrong way about. I mean, who is polarizing the sectarian divide? Did the government call for the people to pour into the streets? Did the government call the people to block the main road into Jordan and Syria? I think that is you've gone too deep into analyzing the situation where you've lost the direction, unfortunately. I think Anas needs to rethink his argument slightly on a national basis and not from a sectarian point of view. I always respect Anas's opinion, but this time he's gone a little bit sectarian, unfortunately.
Hiwa Osman, we'll move on from these arrests in just a moment to talk about the wider issue of the challenges that face Iraq. But what do you make of the fact that, as Anas was saying there, events are oddly reminiscent of this time last year when Iraqi authorities sought the arrest of the Sunni Vice President Tariq al-Hashemi and his bodyguards?
Well, I was on the same program, I think, to the day about the arrest of the bodyguards of Mr. Tariq al-Hashemi. And I think there are two very important points to note here, with all due respect to the other two guests. Iraq is the fourth or the fifth most corrupt country in the world. according to Transparency International. Baghdad still is the worst city to live in the world, according to the Mercer Index in London. Now, these indices have nothing to do with the sectarianization, they have nothing to do with the politics, it has everything to do with the performance of the government. And this is a key indicator for, I think, the Prime Minister to really think hard about his performance as a Prime Minister of Iraq, and him wanting to drag everybody, to bog everybody down with side problems, and forgetting at the same time the bigger issues that are facing him as a government and as a Prime Minister. The challenge of getting Iraq back to the international, on its feet, is everybody's duty. But to do this, you need a leader, and unfortunately, the Prime Minister has not displayed leadership. Since last year, since the withdrawal of the Americans, Iraq has moved from one problem to the other. And in every problem, in every crisis that existed, unfortunately, the Prime Minister was party to the conflict. It was always, the question became in Iraq, whenever a crisis came up, who is it? Who is the other person? Because it was for sure that the Prime Minister was the first party to that crisis.
Right. Let's bat that back to Saad al-Muttalibi then. What do you make of what you just heard there, that the Prime Minister has not displayed leadership? What sort of leader is he?
Well, he's absolutely right. Baghdad is probably one of the worst places to live in, and Iraq has failed, and that is all thanks to the Kurdish ministers, who miserably failed in their works here in Baghdad and known to be corrupt, and a group of thugs, and probably worse than that. And again, the Iraqi ministers, who unfortunately the corruption has reached levels of unprecedented magnitude in their ministries. And naturally, Maliki or any other prime minister would fail or would not be able to achieve his targets with such ministers. Unfortunately, he cannot exercise his leadership because of the system, the political system that we have in Iraq, and he has to go through the parliament in everything he needs to do. So it's very true what he said, and all blame, thank you very much, falls on your ministers who have been working on treason after treason after complicating the picture. The last one was the ration paper, where they tried to remove the ration from the people. This is unfortunately quite unacceptable, but it is facts.
All right. Let's take a look at some of the challenges that the Maliki government faces in Iraq. The first, of course, security. The unrest is part of a broader sectarian conflict that threatens the stability of the entire country a year after the last US troops left. Now, many Sunnis see the arrest of al-Issawi's guards as the latest in a series of moves by Maliki's Shia-dominated government against their community. Last year, the arrest warrant against the top Sunni official Tariq al-Hashemi, as we mentioned, plunged the country into chaos. He's now in exile in Turkey. He'd been given multiple death sentences for allegedly running hit squads. The country's Kurds are also at odds with the central government on issues that include the distribution of land for the development of oil resources in the Kurdish region. So let's try to broaden this out. Anas, I know you're itching to come back with to respond to what you've heard. I want to try to broaden the discussion out if we can. But in your opinion, we heard that the Prime Minister can't lead as he perhaps should because he's hindered by the political system. But is he trying to consolidate power, do you think, by targeting his political rivals? What is the Prime Minister up to?
Well, it goes without saying that I totally disagree with Mr. al-Muttalibi's statement. I think that this is a government that is in deep denial, and if his statement reflects the position of the government, then, to be honest, there's an added dimension to the deep crisis that Iraq faces. And I totally agree with Hiwa in regards with the picture that he's just portrayed about the deep crisis on every single level every single level. We talk politics, but we forget that every single Iraqi, regardless of their ethnicities, regardless of their sect, regardless of whether they're Arabs or Kurds or Turkmens or the such, every single Iraqi lives a miserable life, according to the indices that here were quoted. But let me come back to al-Maliki. Al-Maliki has arguably now amassed power and authority unprecedented. Funnily enough, even some commentators from his own circle are saying that this is even greater, the power and authority that he has amassed, than the days of Saddam Hussein. Let's not forget, after 3 years of being Prime Minister, he has yet to appoint a Ministry of Interior, a Ministry of Defence and a Ministry of Intelligence and Internal Security, which means, by virtue of the Constitution, that he is acting Minister of all three. No one moves anywhere in Iraq, not a policeman, not a soldier, no one moves in, anywhere in Iraq without the say-so of al-Maliki. For him to come back now and then accuse others such as Tariq al-Hashemi or such as Rafi al-Issawi or anyone else of being behind any kind of violence or terrorism or the such on fabricated evidence is something which really begalls the mind. It's mind-boggling. Al-Maliki at this moment of time heads the government that is failing on every single level, and the way in which to create a smokescreen in order to sort of divert attention from the deep failures on every single level is to come up with these trumped up charges against the senior politicians whom just happen to be Sunni leaders. But we all know that we are entering into election year. We all know that at the final count, the balance sheet will show a country that has failed, a government that has failed its people, and a country that has failed in order to secure any kind of basic needs and amenities for the people. And therefore al-Maliki will need such accusations, such dossiers, such media reports and such headlines in order to create that kind of smokescreen and to have people vote him back. That's the position of al-Maliki, and sadly the people who pay with this are the Iraqi people themselves.
Mr. Muttalibi, the government is failing on every single level, we heard there, and it's creating a smokescreen to prevent people seeing reality.
Actually, there is smoke here. Next door neighbors are cooking bread, a traditional way, and the smoke is actually I can smell it. Maybe that's the smoke he's talking about, Anas. But actually, come on, this is
sadly that's the level. That's the level of the government that we have at this moment of time, bringing now what we're talking about, the misery of every single Iraqi, to that kind of statement. I'm sorry, Mr. al-Muttalibi, but you reflect that failure of the Iraqi government, and you should be ashamed of yourself for coming up with something like this at this moment of time, in which Iraq lives in a deep crisis. You may be joking, but there's nothing facetious about this. This is a serious matter, sir.
Well, everything you say is a joke to me, honestly, honest. Everything you say is a joke because you've been so long out of the country.
The joke is, Mr. al-Muttalibi, is your government, your Prime Minister, and the way that you've run this country. That is the real joke, and that is what the whole world is watching. You have brought Iraq down to a level that never, even in the dark days of Saddam Hussein, it ever imagined that it would stoop to. We are now the worst in terms of corruption. We are the worst in security, and you sit there as an official, and you have the goal to make jokes about smoke screens. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. al-Muttalibi.
The institution that ruled Iraq.
All right, let's
well, naturally, Anas would speak such of Saddam Hussein because he's part of that regime, and he's very sad that Saddam Hussein has gone, and all their interests,
Saad,
all their yes, you are the same institution. You are of the political institution that look, you maybe do not belong to the Ba'ath Party, but you belong to the institution that gave Saddam Hussein the authority to rule over Iraq. Do not make mistakes. Everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows that your organization have provided the political authority for Saddam Hussein.
You should have the dignity not to lie.
So anyway,
I have been in exile all my life, Mr. al-Muttalibi. You should know this.
All right, gentlemen, let's hang out there. Wait a minute, because
come back to Baghdad. Come back to Baghdad and see truth.
We're shouting over each other here, and we're not making a lot of sense. Hiwa Osman, give us a view from the north, where of course the Kurds have their own issues with al-Maliki. What do you make of what you've heard here, what our other two guests have been saying, and the claim that he's becoming al-Maliki another Saddam Hussein?
Well, I mean, I was glad to hear Mr. Muttalibi admitting Maliki's failure to display leadership. I think this is a reality that needed to come out. But it is unfortunate to put the blame on other ministers, on a service ministry or another ministry, because the reality is that if he's a true prime minister, If he is unable to deliver, he should have resigned. But at the same time, he should have resigned. He should have told Parliament, I'm unable to deliver. What is he doing if he is unable to deliver because of his ministers?
Okay.
This is one reality. The other sad reality that we see here is that the bottom line is, for all of these problems, the Kurdish North is at a better stage in terms of services, in terms of everything else. And the being bogged down by a conflict with Baghdad of that level, to be the general feeling in the north is that we are being asked in the north to wait for Baghdad to catch up with us, and then we can evolve together.
And what of the friction
here?
And Hiwa, what of the friction then between the Kurdish North and the rest of the country, and also between Iraqi Sunnis and Shia? Is Iraq a ticking time bomb?
Well, I think it is. Iraq has always been, since its establishment over about a century ago, has been a ticking time bomb. Because Iraq is a peculiar country, is a unique country in the Middle East. Iraq cannot be ruled by a ruler. It needs a leader. Iraq cannot be ruled by one man, one party, one sect, and one nationality. Iraq, in its makeup, it is a compilation of everybody in this country, and rule in this country should be by consensus. And the current Prime Minister, he is there because of consensus. He is there, he is a Prime Minister today because of the agreement that was signed in Erbil, that was signed by all political parties, that he should be the Prime Minister of all. But unfortunately, with every new crisis we are seeing, the Prime Minister is becoming a Prime Minister for a smaller and smaller and smaller group. What we are failing to see, instead of working on fixing the country's problems, all of these problems that are being talked about, all of these international figures that are being talked about, the floods that are today in Baghdad, for example, he goes on a shopping spree to buy weapons from all of these countries. What the Iraqi citizen today needs: electricity, needs water, needs health service, needs education.
We're rapidly running out of time. We get your point. Many thanks. That's Anas. I suppose it was only a matter of time before Sunni frustration spilled over onto the streets. How do you see this confrontation developing? Just how dangerous is it?
It's very dangerous, but I think it's timely. And to be honest, it might have started by a Sunni community, but it reflects an anger that runs throughout the country. You know, Shia leaders, Muslims, Christians, Kurds, everyone is angry because there is a failure. And I totally second what Hiwa has just said. There is a failure on every single level, but unfortunately we have the problem of a government, and if once again reflected by the very poor performance of Mr. al-Muttalibi, then it's a government in deep crisis, simply because everything that it confronts, it throws and shoulders someone else. It throws the blame at someone else, at either Kurdish ministers or the Sunni community, and everyone is being sectarian but the government. Everyone is being volatile and being violent but the government. And ultimately the government and the Prime Minister have nothing to do with the utter failure of Iraq. I think that where we are right now, I think we are seeing the spreading of anger throughout the streets of Iraq. If we see this multiplied in various other provinces, then this is something that we need to keep an eye on, because it could be with the Syrian neighbor, it could be something that Iraq is going to follow with in the imminent future.
Mr. al-Muttalibi, sorry, we have about 30 seconds left. A final word from you. The government is in deep crisis. It's not helping Iraq.
This is all ludicrous. Life goes on in Iraq. Iraq is part of the world. The world is faced with crisis. Iraq is part of this universe. So naturally we'll have some crisis. Everything is resolvable. Of course, naturally, Masoud Barzani is trying to create problem every day, because he is the type of dictator that wishes to keep control of Kurdistan and keep interfering in every walk of life here in Baghdad. Hopefully, one day soon they will get away and become independent and God riddance.
I'm afraid I would love to be able to offer Hiwa the right of reply there. Unfortunately, I can't. The news waits for no man, and it's next. Thank you, gentlemen in Baghdad. Saad al-Muttalibi in London, Anas al-Tikriti, and in Erbil, Hiwa Osman. And once again, thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. If you want to comment on anything that you've heard, then please do just email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks again for watching. I'm Adrian Finnegan. I'll see you again. Bye for now.